Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started with our webcast tonight. I just want to say welcome to the My Horse University and Extension's Horse Quest live webcast titled Understanding and Evaluating the Gaited Horse. Our presenter tonight is Alaina Parsons. Alaina is a graduate of North Carolina State University with a BS in Animal Science and is in the second year of her master's program at MSU, studying equine exercise physiology and performance horse nutrition. She professionally trains light shod Tennessee walking horses, spotted saddle horses, and racking horses, and has operated Shady Oaks Farm in Wake Forest, North Carolina for the past 9 years. Alaina shows light shod pleasure and versatility horses nationally and has earned over 30 national championship titles with horses that she has trained. I just want to make a note that you are able to ask questions in the chat box throughout the presentation tonight. On the left side of your screen. So feel free to do that, and we will leave time for questions at the end as well. And tonight's presentation will be recorded and uploaded to our website if you want to review it at a later date. And at this time, I will turn the presentation over.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Good evening, everyone. I'm very excited that you are here because that means that you have some sort of an interest in the gaited horse, which is awesome because gaited horses are really cool and they're not scary. Some people think that it's scary to try and understand the gaited horse, but it's not. I would love to answer questions as we're going along. This presentation is largely composed of video, so if at any point you have a question or you don't understand something, please feel free to ask it in the chat box, and I will be trying to monitor that and evaluate it as we go along. So the whole purpose of our presentation tonight is to try and understand and evaluate the gaited horse a little better. We're going to look at a few breeds of gaited horses. There are more breeds of gaited horses than are what are listed here. And okay, for questions about issues with your horses, definitely, but more towards the end of the presentation. So, and it depends. We can try and deal with some specific questions about that. So for our overview of our goals, we're going to look at a few specific breeds. There are many more breeds of gaited horses than this, but we have a limited time slot. And so what I would really like to do is focus on these breeds, which tend to be a little bit higher in terms of popularity in the U.S., so that you can have a better understanding of them if you were to see them at an open horse show or a clinic, or if you're an instructor or a trainer, if someone comes to you with one of these horses. So by the end of this presentation, we will hopefully be able to identify the correct gaits for the Tennessee walking horse, the spotted saddle horse, the racking horse, Paso Finos, Rocky Mountain horses, and Missouri foxtrotters. And we will be able to identify incorrect and unbalanced gaits. And the way we're going to do this is by using tools of evaluating collection, balance, and frame to identify and evaluate our gaits based on then the quality and athleticism of the animal. So I know this looks like a very overwhelming list of goals. Don't be scared. Don't run away. Stay on the list to watch because it will be less scary than it looks, I promise. What we're going to look at is just the primary identifying features of each gait. We're not going to dig into each gait with an excruciating amount of detail. I do have a list of resources to utilize, and the reasons that I'm putting these on here is so that when you are coming back to potentially want to evaluate a specific breed of horse in more detail, you have these available to you, because I know that this webcast will be recorded and stored in the archives. So these next few slides are a lot of words. What we're going to do is go over them very short and kind of quickly so that you can come back and look at these at your leisure if you have more questions, because I would love to use this time to look at a lot of video, because I think that video and talking and evaluation using the video is much more helpful than me describing gaits to you, as much as, you know, it's fun to listen to someone talk over a computer screen. So these websites are generally the primary websites for each breed. If you have a specific breed of horse that you're interested in, I would encourage you to check these websites out. They'll give you further resources, people to contact, breed history, their rule books, all kinds of things like that. And they're a much better resource than what I can be in this hour. So to begin with, we're going to start with our Tennessee walking horse. And these slides, like I said, I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. So don't feel overwhelmed. These are here, honestly, so that if you want to come back and look in the archives, you have a written description of the gaits. We're going to talk about these and see these in video the whole rest of the time, so don't panic if you think I'm running through these quickly. For Tennessee walking horses, they'll perform a trail walk, also called a walk or a dog walk. For those of you who don't know, Tennessee walking horse people, we like to kind of be a little bit of the rednecks of the horse world, but it's totally fine because it's much more fun that way. So a dog walk or a walk is very comparable to a free walk in dressage. The horse will work on light contact or literally on the buckle of the reins. Excellent manners, consistency, should be very reachy, very stretch, and very, very loose and free. A flat walk is going to be a more brisk, long-reaching walk, and it's going to have the two features that the Tennessee walking horse are primarily famous for. That is both the overstride and the rhythmical head nod. This gait is a four-beat cornered gait. Each foot's going to hit the ground separately, and the horse is going to glide over its track. So the rhythm of the gait is going to go left hind, left front, right hind, right front, with the hind leg overstriding the hoof print from the front leg. In these gaits, we really want to see only horizontal hock motion. That means we want to see a hock that is gliding, reaching along the ground. We don't want to see very animated hock motion in these horses, like you would like in your trotting breeds, like if you had a saddle seat horse, like a saddlebred or a Morgan. We don't want to see that. On the front end, the horse should have proper animation for its frame and its build. Animation up front should match power from behind. And so what we want to see is cadence and balance with that, and the horse should be reaching and pulling from its shoulder instead of a quick snap forward. We want to see a very rolling, reachy action on these horses. A running walk is all the same characteristics, but you should see a noticeable increase in speed and stride length. All right, a running walk is an extension. That doesn't just mean faster, it means an extension overall. There should also therefore be a more powerful natural motion from this animal. And it is literally, y'all, word for word in the rule books, if he ain't nodding, he ain't walking. All right, a walking horse who is performing a true running walk has got to be nodding his head. And it should be a natural straight up and down head motion that's timed with the rhythm of the gait. We'll see some examples of high quality horses and lower quality horses tonight, so you'll be able to identify that. The biggest thing with this gait is you should not see winging, crossing, rope walking on the front end, all right? You shouldn't see a hesitated or crampy or exaggerated way of going, or a horse that has a tendency to point its front hooves. We call this bad image, and it's a sign that this gait is not very natural for the horse. We want to see a horse that's performing in a balanced and natural manner. The canter should be a straight, smooth, 3-beat gait that is straight and true on both leads. Gaited horses can canter. Don't ever let anybody tell you different. Some of them can do it well due to their training, but every horse has the ability. Whether or not it will be beneficial for that horse to canter is up to the purpose that you want to have that horse for. And we'll get into that a little later. But when they do canter, you should exhibit a very rolling, collected motion that rises and falls, very similar to a rocking chair. Which is why this gait is also called the rocking chair canter. You do not want to see the rider doing excessive pumping of the reins. This means pulling the horse's head up, kind of with an excessive motion. We'll see some examples of that. And the horse's head is going to rise and fall a little to accommodate the rhythm of its motion. The head and neck are there for balance, so the horse is going to have to use them in this gait. The racking horse can also perform a trail walk, and they're going to perform for their first gear a show walk. A show walk is just a very smooth, collected, easy gait. Depending on the horse, it could be a collected flat walk or a very slow and collected rack. So, what is a rack? A rack is also a relaxed 4-beat, 4-cornered gait. Each foot's going to hit the ground separately. This gait is also known, like the old school terms, as the single foot. It's going to be the same footfall pattern as the flat walk and running walk. And it's going to be a very smooth gait. Quicker strides. We still want to see cadence and reach and quality, but the horse is going to be moving a little bit quicker in its legs, and there should be very little head motion. But the biggest difference in these two gaits is the horse is not going to nod its head, and it's going to show a little more elevation and snap with the front end rather than the deliberate rolling reach of the running walk. And again, don't get scared. We're going to see lots of video. Fast rack or the show rack, or if we're like out in a country show, we holler rack on, and these horses go. You're going to have the same qualities of the trail rack, but there's going to be a noticeable increase in speed and length as well as style and action. and it should be a rather fast gait, but your form should never be sacrificed for speed. And horses who break gait into the canter should be heavily penalized. Excuse me, y'all, I'm still trying to get over a cold. Spotted saddle horses. All that a spotted saddle horse is a gaited horse with some color. Paint comes in cans and pintos are beans. These horses are spotted. All right, so this can be a walking horse, a racking horse, a Missouri Foxtrot, or a Paso, you name it. So the way we define these gaits is a little differently. Because these can be so many different breeds of horses, their gaits are defined simply as a show walk or a show gait. And it's purely just a smooth, easy gait with the horse under control. So this is generally a slow rack or a flat walk for their show gait, or a fast rack and a running walk for our show gait. Our show walk is a slow rack or a flat walk. They can also canter, same as previously described, very collected and smooth. Paso Finos. All right, these guys are going to perform with a high degree of collection. They're going to be a very collected animal and have a shorter stride length and a little bit rapid foot motion because of it. The walk, we want it to be very evenly spaced, brilliant, brisk, rhythmic, and you should definitely have collection. The classic Fino. Paso Fino means fine step. So horses that are classic Fino horses, this is like the Grand Prix of the Fino world. These horses are generally your more elite performance athletes. But the Fino is an evenly spaced 4-beat lateral gait, and it's going to be very smooth, very, very collected. The footfall pattern should be extremely quick with very forward little motion. These horses are literally, a good one is going to look like he's staying in place. He's maybe going to move forward at a rate of like 2 feet a minute. All right, so for these horses who are not the elite Paso or classic Fino athletes, they're going to perform a walk, a Paso Corto, and a Paso Largo. Paso Corto means short step. Paso Largo means long step. It's going to be the same footfall pattern, but you're just going to have a little more forward motion. These horses' legs are still going to move pretty rapidly, but they're just going to stretch out and make a little bit more forward extension. This will be much easier to see in the video. So gaits of the Rocky Mountain horse. They'll do a trail walk. For these horses in the show ring, it is extremely important that they perform the trail walk with 100% manners. They have got to be on the buckle, literally like just completely relaxed, engaged, loose, paying attention, supple. Very important for this breed. The show walk is a deliberately timed 4-beat gait with moderate stride and speed. So the feet should move in a non-exaggerated way of going. What this gait is going to kind of look like is it's going to look similar to a rack. It's going to kind of be a combo rack flat walk. These horses kind of have their own unique way of going. And then they're going to perform the Rocky Mountain pleasure gait. Exhibit the same qualities at the show walk, but with a noticeable increase in stride and speed length. And if you guys are noticing a trend, every second gear of these horses is simply an extension of the first gear, which takes half the petrifying scare out of it. They can canter, the same as previously described. The only horse where this is an exception in terms of their gaits is the Missouri Foxtrotter. They're going to perform a trail walk and a flat walk exactly as previously described, but their second gear is a foxtrot. The foxtrot is a unique gait. It's a diagonal gait. It's still 4 beats, and what's going to happen is the front foot's going to hit the ground just a split second before the opposite hind foot. So the horse will literally be walking on the front end and trotting on the hind. It's going to look like a broken trot. It's a very distinct gait to identify when it's being done correctly. We'll see some examples of a collected and correct foxtrot and then an incorrect one. And it's definitely not a high stepping gait. The more animation you get into this gait, the harder it is for a horse to foxtrot. So it should be a consistent, smooth gait. This horse will nod its head a little bit in rhythm, but it's not going to be as deep and as strong as the flat walk. Our other gaits, a pace. So these gaits are generally termed our undesirable gaits. In some breeds, such as the American Saddlebred, the stepping pace is their slow gait, and these horses can perform this with collection and in a correct manner. The way we're looking at these gaits is this is what's happening when a gaited horse is not being ridden in a collected and correct manner. These horses are bred for these gaits. 90% of the time when we look at a horse who is balanced, collected, supple, using their hindquarters correctly, they're going to be doing the correct gait for their breed. There are going to be horses who are more athletic than others who perform their gaits better, but otherwise, when you see a pace, a stepping pace, and an amble, as we'll get to in a minute, generally it's a sign that the horse is uncollected or heavy on the forehand or is having some issue in its frame. So a pace is a 2-beat lateral gait, meaning the hind and forefoot on the same side move together in pairs, and it's a very rough gait. A true pace is very rough. The rider will kind of swing side to side, and it's very bouncy in appearance. And those of you who have ridden a pace know what I'm talking about. It's not a desirable gait for a gaited horse. A stepping pace can be smoother. That's a broken pace. It's 4 beats. It can be smooth if it's performed correctly, and that's the desirable gait for the horse. But generally, it's still very swingy and rough. The head will nod a little, but it will go in a V shape from side to side. And then we have an amble. And this basically refers to any gait that's slow and clumsy. So if we just have a horse who's kind of like shuffling along, we call it an amble. And normally you see this on your babysitter school horses, you know, that are taking kids around the ring or down the trail. You know, they're kind of shuffling along, but they're definitely not really doing anything. So if you're judging a show, horses must perform the correct gait for their respective class or breed. So for instance, if we have a very average quality horse who has a clean ride and a very high quality horse who breaks a gait or who has a tendency to want to trot or pace, that horse cannot place above the horse who's having a correct ride, just like any other horse breed. So don't let that panic you if you have to judge them. Look for manners, consistency, and then quality. So example, you could have the world champion racking horse, world champion ever, but if he's in a class that is for walking horses and he is not walking, he cannot place above a horse who is doing a walk cleanly and correctly, if that makes sense. So going on, I know that was a lot of information all at once, but the pure reason it's up here so you can go back on your own and hit pause and read it. What we're going to do now is look at video. Now, I have a lot of video, so we tried an uploading deal and it wasn't really going to work, so I'm going to share my desktop with you guys. Some of you may have a slower internet connection, so these videos may not be clear for your connection, but that's why this is archived. You can always go back on a better connection to view them. And if I'm going too fast, or if this is, if you were really having an issue with the videos, let us know, because if all of you are having an issue with them, that means something's going on with my computer. So now you should be able to see my desktop, and yeah, I hid all my crazy illegal stuff from you guys. Not really, just kidding. And what we're going to do is look at a bunch of video. I'm going to try and talk slowly. And Amanda, this is the point where I don't have the Adobe Pro up on my computer screen. So if someone asks a question, you may need to verbally let me know. Excuse me. So let's start out here. We're going to start off looking at a trail walk. So a trail walk is going to be exhibited by several of your breeds of horses. And this is a yearling, but I want you to look at the quality that we're looking for here. These horses, and I'm going to play these videos a few times in a row as well, so don't panic if they're short. We want to see a horse who's long and swingy and loose. This horse has got a lot of looseness and a lot of swinginess. Look how he's reaching through his shoulder. That tail is swinging from side to side. He's really just stretching over his back. His whole body's into it as a result. If we have a horse who's not loose at a trail walk, they are not going to be loose and free when we speed them up at all. So it's very important that this gait is long and swingy and relaxed. Under saddle, this horse will be on the buckle, very relaxed and loose. But the big thing I want you to see here is the looseness and the swinginess. Amanda, are these coming through clear?
So far, so good on my end.
Okay.
If anyone's having trouble, you can comment in the chat box.
Okay, good deal. All right, awesome. So let's move on for our walking horses, for our flat walk. And what I'm going to do, I'll go ahead and preface this. Most of my videos, either I've taken, and I'm not very skilled with the camera, or I take them off YouTube. So if you're a person who has posted a video on YouTube of your gaited horse, you are susceptible to me finding you. So just keep that in mind. So what we're going to look at for each breed is we're going to start off looking at some quality horses, some horses who are performing the gaits correctly so that you can see a high quality horse. Then we're going to look at a horse who may not be quite as athletic so that you can see the difference. All right, so what we're going to look at here, what does on the buckle mean? All right, thank you. On the buckle means that you are literally holding the very end of your reins. So the horse has got the complete rein and it's very relaxed. And so the horse is on as literally as loose of a rein as you can hold them. Like you're just holding the rein kind of with one hand, there's a huge drape in it. All right, so what we've got here is a walking horse, and I'm going to show this in slow motion. Hopefully it'll show in slow motion for you guys as well. If not, you can try it on another deal. All right, so slow motion. What I want you to look at, don't worry about footfall. Look at frame. This horse is engaged. He's balanced, he's supple. This is what we want to see. So when you look at a horse, the very first question you should ask yourself is this horse performing the correct gait? That's the first question. So we have a walking horse here, so we say, is this horse walking? Answer is yes. So if you look at his head, the head is definitely nodding. And he's doing, remember our awesome redneck rule, he ain't nodding, he ain't walking. All right? So that head is nodding up and down, and it's nodding from the shoulder. It's not just nodding from the pole. The head nod originates in the hind end. There's a very horizontal hock action. If you look at this horse's hind end, very engaged, reaching over the stride of the front foot in a very balanced and cadenced manner. This horse is reaching up front and behind. He's not just reaching behind, all right? A lot of times we'll have an unbalanced horse. Now we'll watch him in real time, but you can see he's reaching just as much up front as he is behind. That head is nodding rhythmically, all right? And relax, look at his ears. These horses a lot of times will have a very relaxed ear and jaw. You'll see their ears flop and their teeth click. That's good. You can't teach that. You can't fake that, all right? So this means this horse is walking naturally. It all originates from the hind end. And you can just see this is a very deliberate and powerful gait. Don't get caught up on animation. Some horses are more animated than others, but this horse is very perfectly situated for the kind of build that he is. Now we're going to look at another. This is a quality horse as well. All right, so this horse is, first question we ask ourselves, is it walking? Yeah, buddy. All right, so that head is nodding. For those of you guys who don't know, this horse, their name is Bluegrass Bandit. There's a Breyer model made after this horse, but a multiple world champion horse. All right, I want you to look at this horse and picture this as a very close to ideal in your mind. All right, so this horse is very naturally nodding. This is a horse who's a little more animated and up in the bridle than our last horse, but still very balanced. Everything should come from the hind end. All right. These horses should have a natural head carriage for their build and a natural flexion at the pole. These horses cannot completely be on the vertical or they're going to cut off their airway. You can't be on the vertical and nod your head like this. They'll die. So what these horses also do, though, they use their head and neck for balance. So that's why it's so important to use it from the shoulder. All right, we'll see this horse go into a running walk here. I'm just moving the video ahead. All right, so all it is just an extension. All right, but very relaxed, very natural, very consistent. Just look at the frame, all right? Very rounded, the hind end is engaged. So naturally this horse is gonna fall into a frame. Frame and headset are not the same thing. Headset just means where your head is. Frame means are they lifting their back and are they pushing with their hindquarters? All right, so if we look at a canter, this should be a nice rolling rocking chair canter with light hoof to ground contact. All right, I really like this horse a lot. I would love to push him forward just a hair. All right, a hair more forward motion. But look how light those reins are. This horse has to use his head and neck to balance himself. This rider's hands are still. All of this is coming from the horse. All right, so in Western pleasure horses, for instance, we'll see a lot of head bobbing horses, and that's a bad thing. In walking horses, that's not a bad thing as long as it's coming from the horse and used to balance. We want a very rolling rhythmic motion with the hock underneath the horse, moving light in the bridle. The only thing about this horse I'd like to change is to move him forward a little more, but his overall image is very nice. It's really easy to find lots of videos of bad canters. It's hard for me to find. All right, so here's another quality horse. And sorry, this is some of my video work, so I apologize if it's everywhere. All right, so same deal. This is a horse who doesn't quite have as much flexion at the pole. This is another horse who is a multiple world champion horse and was a representative at the equestrian games for us. But again, lots of reach. This horse is reaching up front and behind, very deliberate. First question you ask, is he walking? Heck yeah. Is he walking well? Yes. We're going to see another horse here in a moment. But very nice. Balanced, quiet. Very nice image on this horse. All right, so this is another horse. First question, is he walking? Yes. Head is nodding, being rhythmic, deliberate. Is he walking well? Yes. Not as well as the horse that was right before him. He's a little inconsistent, but he's got a snaffle in, so he's probably a baby. But still long. Hocks are sweeping close to the ground, reaching through his shoulder, nodding all the way from his shoulder, not just nodding from the pole. Excuse me. All right, here's another example. All right, and some of this video is broken just from the quality, but I want you to get the idea of the power of this horse. First question we look at, is he nodding? Is he walking? Yes. All right, through his whole body. Lots of power, lots of deliberation. Lots of power, lots of deliberation. The more powerful the hind end, the deeper the head nod is going to be. All right, the head nod comes from the hind end. It does not come from us doing things to the face of the horse, despite what anyone tells you. There's a lot of old school trainers who will give tricks like, say, you know, just tie a medicine bottle full of rocks to their bridle and they'll shake their head. Yeah, they will. They'll shake their head sideways, try and get it off. Everything comes from the hind end. So this is an example of a horse who's a little more animated. He's a plantation horse, but still, first question, is he walking? Yeah, look at those ears flopping. You can't fake that. All right, he's got a little more animation, but he's still balanced and he's still stretching. Very nice horse. This was another World Equestrian Games representative. So this is our last, like, pretty high quality horse we're going to look at. So now you guys can look at more of the lower quality. But just because they have action doesn't mean you should sacrifice the rest of their form. He has a rolling action, all right? Rolling and powerful, not just snappy and unbalanced. All right, so let's look at this guy. First question, is he walking? Yes. Is he walking well? He's average, I would say. So this horse is definitely correct and consistent, but he doesn't have the power of the first horses that we saw, okay? So this horse has a shorter stride. He's just not quite as athletic. He's collected, he's balanced, but see how much shorter he is in the back end? And as a result, he has a quicker head nod, and he has a quicker turnover with his front legs, and he's a little harder in his hoof to ground contact. He's correct, he's just not quite as athletic and talented as the horses we've seen so far. So, first question, is he walking? Yeah. Is he walking well? I'd say fair to poor. All right, what I have an issue with this horse is he is very heavy on his forehand. Don't look at football patterns and try and count them. Look at the overall frame of the horse. All right, so this guy is really, really hard in his hoof to ground contact, kind of stabby in his hind end, and because of that, because he's heavy on his forehand, it literally looks like the rider's almost trying to lift him up. Because of this, he is going to have less head nod and less forward motion. Now, this is a horse where if you were to work him and get him on his hindquarters, I bet he would be very, very nice. There's definitely worse examples in the world than him, but what we're looking at in this horse is he's an example of he doesn't have that huge distinct head nod because he's heavier on the forehand. So, first question, is he walking? Yes. Is he walking well? No. So this is an example of a horse who is very heavy on the forehand, and he's also kind of unbalanced in his frame. He's kind of wanting to drop his shoulder to the inside, and the rider's kind of trying to overcorrect for it a little bit. And as a result of that, this horse is very flat over his top line. All right, he's very flat and very heavy. So he's very short-strided, leaning down on the bit, and just really short and quick in his stride. So because of the lack of collection, it's going to affect the quality of the movement. So don't worry about just trying to identify exactly which footfall pattern's happening. Look at the overall picture. All right, so we'll look at this guy. Is he walking? Yes. Is he walking well? Not so much. This is an example of a horse where they're trying to have too much animation on the front end without having a strong enough back end to propel him forward. So this horse is an example of a horse who nods from the pole. See how his head is just kind of quickly nodding? It's not coming from his shoulder, and his front and back end don't really match up. All right, he seems like he's having to move very quickly up front, and he's kind of stabby behind, and he's not really reaching with that long, purposeful stride. So we're going to go and look at some canter examples now. Now this is a class I got really excited because there were a lot of horses in it. So I apologize for my camera work. It's going to jump around a little. So we have a horse who's doing a very nice, balanced reaching canter. I'd like to straighten him up a little bit. He wants to drop his hip to the inside to make him perfect. But then we come over here and we see what I call the pogo stick. So this horse has animation, yes. But this horse is incredibly inverted, all right? Look at the inversion of that neck. There's no collection. We'll see him again. No collection and no roundness. He's just popping up and down. All right? Very stiff through the neck. So animation doesn't necessarily mean a quality gait. And then we'll have a horse who, like this next horse, tends to be very flat or fast and isn't very distinct in their canter. He's kind of almost forebeating. All right, so we'll see some other canter examples. Do we have any questions just in general on the quality of the flat, questions of the flat and running walk? In terms of the question without the best way to strengthen the back end, I will address that at the end. So we're going to move on and look at the rack. The rack is going to be different than the flat walk and running walk. Same footfall pattern, all right, and this is an average racking horse. This isn't a spectacular racking horse, but it isn't poor quality either. But it's a great way for you to see the difference in the gait. All right, these horses are not going to nod their head, and they're going to move a little quicker in their legs. We still want to see reach, front and hind, but it's going to just be a different motion. All right, it's not as deliberate and distinct. The flat walk and running walk are very deliberate and very distinct and very rhythmic. All right, racks can be faster and quicker. We still want to see that horse stretching with its hock low to the ground. This horse is a little over-bridled for me and is a little inconsistent, wants to be a little strong. But in terms of being able to see the difference between a rack and a flat walk, it's a very good example. All right, Chris asked a question about the Tennessee trail horse has his head going side to side. We'll see some examples of what that means. Towards the end, he is most likely doing a little bit of a stepping pace. All right, good. So now this right here, y'all, is a racking horse that is an awesome horse. You're not going to see a horse like this every day, but what we want to see a rack where a horse is reaching, and this horse is reaching. All right, he's a speed racking horse, which means he can fly, he can stay low to the ground. I know the video on this is a little low quality, but you can still see how much this horse is moving. All right, and I'm jumping around a little. Look at this sucker go, y'all. If you ever have a chance to ride a racking horse, do it. It is the ride of a lifetime. It is so much fun. So you're going to see these horses. This horse is a wonderful speed racking horse. This is like the epitome of quality that you were looking for. All right, this is your perfect to compare everyone else to. He's even so good that he can just be like chilling along the side of a truck. You know, they're going down the road. He's just hanging out, cruising at like 20 miles an hour, never misses a step. This guy is chilling on him in his shorts, just hanging out. He's not going anywhere. So this is why on a racking horse, if you want a speed racking horse, it is not desirable to teach them to canter because they can break. But look at him go. And that guy is just, he is chilling like a villain. He's just hanging out. All right. So this is the big difference in a rack and a walk. Now, most of the racking horses we see tend to look a little more like this. All right, they're going to not be as long strided. This guy is not really framed up. All right, he's nosing out a little bit, but still doing a rack. All right, what I want you to look at is the difference here from a rack and a walk. Rack, less deliberate, no head nod. And this is the difference right here. This is a lower quality racking horse, all right, compared to the one we just saw. He doesn't have as much reach or as much power, but if you also look over his top line, he's heavy on his forehand. He's kind of dragging himself along instead of pushing. And he's kind of nosing out and hollow. So look at the quality of the ride. That's going to tell you the quality of the horse. Not something we have to panic about. And if you're panicking right now because of all the gaits, it's okay. You can go back and watch this like 5 times. That's the beauty of it versus listening to me in a real life setting. So spotted saddle horse, we already talked. These guys, it just means they got some color. They're either generally going to be walking or racking type horses. So we're going to look at this horse that's going, and I want you guys to ask yourselves, I'm going to be quiet, I want you to say, is he walking or racking? He is walking, all right? That head is nodding, very deliberate in his gait, reaching and forward, all right? And then the next question is he walking well? He's pretty average, all right? So he could be much stronger if he was a little straighter. And the way you can tell that is this horse, he is nodding from the shoulder, but his head is not necessarily truly going up and down. It's going a little bit side to side. He's nosing out a little, kind of inconsistent. All right, so that's where he could be better. Is he a poor mover? No. All right, but he's definitely, you know, has his areas where he can improve as well. I'll let you guys kind of look at that again. And now we have an example of one performing a rack. So first question we ask is he walking or racking? He's racking. That head is still, feet are moving a little quicker. Next question, is he racking well? I'd say he's the upper end of poor quality. This horse is very short-strided, but he's very consistent. All right? Very consistent. He's just a little short-strided, kind of quick-legged. Not the most athletic thing in the world, kind of flat. He could be more round, all right, but very consistent in his footfall pattern. All right, moving on to the fun guys. Paso Fino. Oh, I'm sorry.
We do have
okay.
one question if you want to stop to answer. From Chris that says, our Tennessee Walker trail horse has his head going side to side.
Chris, he is probably doing a stepping pace. We'll see some video at the end here. So when I get ready to show a stepping pace video, pay close attention to it and see if it's similar looking to what your horse is doing. And then we can discuss it at the end. All right, so Paso Fino, extreme collection. Now this is a very high quality horse. This is a classic Fino horse. Look at those feet. Look at that guy. He's just going to zoom right by him. These horses, when you go to their national championship show, they're only going to make it half a lap around the arena. All right? We want to see very rapid footfall motion with very little forward motion. Look at the degree of collection on this horse. The hocks are underneath him. This other guy is just flying by him on the inside, going like 2 miles an hour. These horses are going to move their legs in a rapid up and down manner. They're not going to be able to have reach like the walking horse or the racking horse, but if they have reach, they're going to be moving forward, which we don't want. We want this extreme collection. These horses, at their breed shows, they'll have what they call a sounding board, which is a long board that's kind of like plywood that extends across the arena. Each horse will make a pass over it. When they go over the board, it literally sounds like a drum roll. I'm not going to make a drum roll sound because I'm not sure what that's going to sound like over the microphone, but you guys know what that sounds like. So these horses, very high degree of collection. All right, this is an example of a championship caliber show horse. You're not going to see this in the open show arena, but I want you to see the image of what the perfect ideal of this gait is. But you can see that horse is completely rocked back on his hindquarters, completely engaged. Soft, supple, mannerly. All right, these are examples of high quality horses as well, but they're going to perform a corto and a largo. They're your pleasure horses. You'll see they still are moving forward a little bit more than your Fino horse, but they still have that high degree of collection. Look at the hocks. The hocks are very underneath this horse. They're going to have very quick and rapid up and down hock movement. All right, very collected motion. It's also hard to find good Paso Fino videos, so I apologize for that. Very smooth. Rider is very still, but look at the frame on this horse. Very collected. You can see that this horse is definitely moving more forward than the horse we just saw, but still moving its legs very rapidly. All right, so this is a Paso Corto that you're looking at right now. And most of your horses that you're going to see in the open show arena are going to be, or on the trail, are not going to be Fino horses. It doesn't make sense to have a Fino horse for a trail horse because you're never going to go anywhere. So you want to see these horses move out with a longer stride, but still be very collected. So now let's look at a little bit lower quality horse that's a little less athletic. So here's this horse walking. The Paso Fino's walk is still going to be very short strided. So don't let them fool you if you're judging a horse show. Their walk is just going to be very collected. Now this horse, when she's moving along, first question we ask, is she performing the correct gait? Yes. Her rider is still. She's moving her legs rapidly. Is she performing it well? I'd say she's very average. If you look at her top line, this mare is not nearly as rounded as the other horses that we saw. All right, she's moving her legs quickly, but she's not really sitting back on her hindquarters like the other horses were. All right, and she's a little bit less flexed in the pole, and you can just tell she's not, literally she should look like she's holding herself up from her stomach, but she's not. And this is again a Paso Corto. A largo is simply the exact same thing with a little bit longer stride. All right, so again, this horse is correct. She's just not quite as athletic as the other horses that we saw. And here we'll see an example of a horse, and there are some slow-mo in here. I don't know if you guys can see. I think this video comes through slowly. I did one other webcast with it, and it seems to be the case. But this is a largo. It's going to be the same thing, but this is an example. First thing we look at is say, is this horse doing its gait? Yes. Is it doing it well? No. This is a very forward horse. And if you look, it's a very flat horse. There's no collection over the top line. I'll play this video a few times for you. See how it's nosing out? It's wanting to drop its shoulder to the inside, and it has a much longer stride than what we want to see. It's smooth, yes, but it definitely doesn't really look like a Paso, does it? It looks kind of like the Racking horse that we saw, maybe. All right, this horse needs to be much more collected and have a shorter stride. But if you look at the frame of this horse tells you he's very rigid through his neck. He's very hollow through his back, so he's leaving his hind end out behind him instead of pushing with it. You should always push from the hind end. All right, that's your motor. This guy is kind of dragging himself with his front feet. And as a result, he's just kind of like, he's like stretched out. All right, he's not all together in one nice little collected package. Do we have any questions on Paso Finos? I'll give you a second to type while we're looking at our next video. We're going to move on to our next horse, Rocky Mountain horses. Rocky Mountain horses are going to perform kind of their own distinct gait. All right, and this is a nice little video that's on YouTube that shows all of the gaits. But we're going to see show walk. It's going to look similar to your rack, okay? It's going to be a smooth 4-beat, 4-cornered gait with maybe a little bit of head motion, but very minimal. All right, and we want to see reaching from behind and reaching up front. All right, so this is a pretty nice horse right here. What I'd like to see is a little more suppleness in the bridle. He's kind of stiff in the neck. He looks like he's a little hot, like he's ready to go. And the pleasure gait is purely an extension. All right, and we'll see another video that shows a better side view of these horses instead of just the front view. I just like this one because it's a pretty good video of all the different gaits. But very balanced, all right? What we want to see is balance and collection. Look at the rider, nice and still, nice and smooth. This is an example of a poor trail walk. All right. This horse, it looks like if you were to let him go, let your reins go, he's going to go off into his next gait. We'll see an example of a good trail walk in a minute. But this is an example of a horse who is not relaxing, not going down onto the buckle. All right. And he's looking around. He's kind of hot, kind of tense. He's not stretchy and not loose. For a moment, in terms of our question that got asked, how do we get the walking horse to stretch out in the back end, consistency in the gaits? All right, we can address that towards the end. We'll go through all the gaits right quick, just so you guys can identify them, and then I love taking questions about like specific working on the gaits and getting the horse to relax. So we can definitely address that, but we'll get through our foxtrotters first. All right, another example of a high quality Rocky Mountain horse. All right, this is what we want to see on our trail walk. Relaxed. That horse is completely attentive, but relaxed and ready to go. This is what on the buckle means for our previous question. It means that she's literally holding the very ends of the reins. They have a lot of slack in them. The horse is relaxed, loose, stretching, dropping his head down. This is what we want to see. So now, when we go to pick it up, this is our Rocky Mountain pleasure gait. So again, looks similar to the rack. And don't panic about trying to identify, is that a rack or a Rocky Mountain pleasure gait? Look at the frame, right? Look at the frame of the horse. If they're balanced, if they're collected, if they're consistent and on the bit, it doesn't matter. You know, if you're looking, whether you're evaluating an open show class of horses or a trail horse. All right, balance and collection are what's going to be key. All right, so this is where this horse is getting a little tired now. He's kind of getting heavy on his forehand some, kind of stabbing with his back end a little bit. He's still not poor quality by any means, but you can tell he's losing a little bit of the edge from what he had earlier. Now we have an example of a lower quality horse, one who's not quite so athletic. So if we look at this horse, first thing to look at is there's no frame. All right, there's no frame to this horse whatsoever. They're very hollow, the nose is up, so they are performing some kind of 4-beat gait, but it's very inconsistent and it's not deliberate. All right, so use these tools, inconsistent and not deliberate. And the rider's bouncing around a little bit because of the inconsistency in the hind end. There's just not balance there. Foxtrotters. These are the ones that kind of scare people the most, and I can't figure out why, because I think they're awesome. So we're going to look at, they're going to do a flat walk and a foxtrot. So this horse is flat walking right now. Look at those ears fluffing. Yeah, buddy. The flat walk's going to be just like a walking horse. Head nodding up and down, reaching from the hind end, relaxed to the forehand. Not going to be quite as long strided as the walkers because these horses have a shorter back end, but that due to the muscles that it requires to foxtrot. But very correct, nodding with every step. And here comes the foxtrot. What you're going to look at this horse. Rider's bouncing a little. You look at it and you say, is that horse trotting? I'm not really sure. All right, we'll play this several times so you guys can see. It's a broken trot. Still nodding its head a little, look at his ears, but he's literally trotting behind and walking up front. But this is an example of a quality and collected foxtrot. We'll see an uncollected one in a minute. All right, so this horse is moving with even rhythm. The rider's going to be bouncing a little bit. Head is still nodding just a little. It's going to look like a broken trot. If you look at it, you say, I don't think that's a running walk. It's probably a foxtrot if they're nodding their head a little and the rider's bouncing. Use your rider, all right? The foxtrot should be the only desirable gait where your rider does bounce a little bit, okay? We're going to go to our flat walk again, and then our foxtrot again. There we go, coming down the rail at a foxtrot. Use tools like your rider's hair, too. As silly as that sounds, ponytails bounce. All right, so do shirt collars. All right, where am I at? There we go. So this is an example of, this is a world championship class, their world grand championship class. So we're just going to see a few very high quality horses, just so you guys can learn what quality looks like. And some of this video is kind of hard to see, so I do apologize for that. But you can see this horse is trotting, fox trotting, but balanced and collected. Look at his frame. He's rounded, Because some horse breeds will foxtrot when they're not supposed to, and that's a result of uncollection, which we'll see in a minute. But this guy is supposed to. That roundness in his neck, rider's bouncing a little. This isn't the video I thought it was. Sorry, y'all. This isn't a very good one. All right, so here's an example of a foxtrotter who is probably not supposed to be foxtrotting. You'll see the difference. So this horse is very, very loose. So you look at him and you say, what is he doing? I'm not sure. Rider's bouncing a little, but he doesn't have a frame on him, does he? Okay, very loose rein, very heavy on the forehand, and now he's like just about straight up trotting. Okay, we want to see a horse that does not look like they're about to be trotting for real. All right, that's the difference between a real foxtrot and a horse who's unbalanced. But look at your frame. So this horse, you can look at his frame, tell he's very heavy on his forehand. The rider's not holding him together at all, and as a result, he's really almost completely trotting. And the foxtrot is a gait where I think it's more difficult to identify than the others and requires a little more skill. So I would definitely encourage you, if you have a horse who foxtrots or are interested in it, definitely go to the Foxtrotter website and utilize some of those resources and contacts. I feel like that's probably the hardest gait for people to learn. All right, so now we're at a stepping pace. So remember what a stepping pace is. It's a broken pace. All right, so what I want you to look at is this horse's frame, and we're going to look at the rider. Bounce, 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 bounce. All right, so this horse is kind of barely nodding his head. All right, a lot of stepping pace horses will nod their head kind of in a V, up and down, but to the side. All right, but this horse, look how just he's not engaged in his hindquarters at all. All right, very heavy on the forehand, dragging along, very stiff and hollow in his neck. And as a result, he doesn't have that distinctive gait. He's a walking horse. He's supposed to be walking. He does not have that distinctive 1, 2, 3, 4. Every now and then he kind of nods his head a little, but definitely not like the horses we saw at the start. That rider's really bouncing around. A true pace is going to be much rougher. And a lot of times you're going to see a horse who is not very engaged, all right, and who is just not pushing forward. So look at this horse. His legs are moving in lateral pairs. Left side together, right side together. All right. He's going very slow, so it's not apparent how rough it is on the rider, but look at his frame. He's just not engaged. He's not moving forward. He's not collected, hitting the ground very hard with his hooves and kicking up all that dirt. Look at all the dirt he's kicking up. But everybody see how his legs are moving in pairs on each side? I think she moves him out here in a little bit. But very shuffly, just very inverted. All right, quiet and cute as a button, but quiet and cute as a button don't fix your gaiting problems, despite what someone may tell you. So the big thing is, don't panic about footfall, just look at frame. You can look at this horse and tell that he's not distinctively moving forward with power. And as a result, we have an issue. And then there's that amble that we talked about, where we have a horse just kind of shuffling along. So this horse, you look at him and you say, what is he doing? He's kind of walking because he's nodding his head, but he's not going anywhere. So if you have a horse, and this is a fine gait, to do down the trail, if it's comfortable for you, that's great. But in the show ring, you need to be picking it up and having a distinctive rhythm pushing forward, which this horse does not have. He's just kind of chilling. But he's being very good and babysitting his rider, which is probably his job. But in terms of evaluating gait quality, this is not what we want to see. We need to see power and we need to see impulsion. Right now, I hope I have not terrified you guys. I know that was a ton of information all at once. A lot of information all at once. But the deal is, the purpose of this course is just to give you an intro. All right? It takes a long time to get comfortable being able to evaluate several breeds of horses. My big point I want to get across to you is just because a horse is a gaited horse does not mean that they have to be, ridden with, a huge animation, or that they have to be ridden completely different. And you don't have to sit there and stare at the footfall pattern of a horse. What you need to work on is balance and working the horse from the hind end, and that's going to result in the horse falling into place where you want it to, regardless of breed. I think a lot of times people look at gaited horses and they panic because they're gaited and they don't know what to do with them. It's balance. It's just like any other breed, balance and collection. So we had a few questions about how do we get the horse to stretch out the back end and get consistent. The same way that you would kind of approach it with another horse. So you want to make sure that you have a horse who gives to pressure, whether it be from your leg and then also in the bit. So you need to work on being able to get that horse supple. And then you go from there, you can work on collection. So the big thing is start off slow. All right, start at a slow but collected gait where you have 4 beats. All right, so sometimes if you have a horse who's a little pacey or trotty, they'll be fine at the slower speed, but as soon as you pick them up, they want to fall out of it. Really work on getting the horse just very slowly ease into it. Baby steps at a time. Just keep pushing that horse a little more to where they'll still hold that 4-beat gait. It might not be as fast as you want it to be, but keep working there. The biggest thing, honestly, it's very hard to diagnose individual gait problems over the internet. A big thing would be, get in touch with a trainer who you could take a lesson or 2 from to figure out the problems of your horse's hind end. If you're having a gaited horse who is not gaiting appropriately, the most likely reason is because of a lack of engagement in the hindquarters, which could be due to a whole bunch of reasons. All right, Paso Fino. My well-bred Paso, who never trots even at liberty, would not gait and instead did some kind of trot. This is not normal. I changed nothing in my riding or tack. Is he injured or back out of alignment? He very well could be. A lot of times, if you haven't changed anything and all of a sudden your horse's behavior or gait changes, it could be because they could have an injury in their hip. Their back could definitely be out of alignment. They could have a stifle or a hock-related injury. Sometimes those will cause horses to be asymmetric. If it's something that he's never done and he's all of a sudden exhibiting, I would say that would be my first avenue to check out for sure. If you know that you haven't changed your riding or your tack, that would be the first area that I would examine. And in terms of Chris, if it helped you be able to see his head going side to side, if you have other questions on that, definitely feel free to ask them. So then Barbara had also asked, what is the best way to strengthen the back end? A good way to strengthen it, if you know that your horse is working correctly, would be honestly at hill work. Work on hills is a great way with walking horses to really strengthen the hind end a little bit. Now you need to do it in moderation and be aware of any issues your horse may have. Like if you have a horse who might be a little arthritic or have a tendency to be sore in his hocks or in his back, hill work is probably not a good idea. But just like with people, the more we can strengthen those muscles, the more power we can get out of them, and strengthening them in a correct way. So that could be one way. Doing properly balanced circle work and bending work will also help to strengthen the hindquarters. Transitions, correct and balanced transitions where you're asking the horse to engage and round over the top line. All these things kind of done repetitively help to strengthen a horse, just like people. We don't go to the gym and all of a sudden can bench press 500 pounds. I mean, I'll say that I do that because you guys can't see a picture of me. You don't know that I'm really I have giant arms and I'm all swollen and huge. Not really, that was a joke. But I'm going to pretend that y'all are laughing since I can't hear you. But you don't just go to the gym and be able to do all this hard work right away. You have to strengthen yourself for it. So the same way with these horses. So correct transitions, correct bending and circle work will help to strengthen those muscles, just like in any other breed of horse. And I hope that you guys were able to see some of the video. I saw some comments about it being choppy, and I wish that I had a way to guarantee that it could be able to be seen smoothly, but hopefully with this resource we're able to make it work a little bit. And I don't know if anyone else has any other questions. I hope I didn't scare too many people away.
Well, it looks like we're about out of time, but if you have questions and want to continue to type them in the chat, you can go ahead and do that. I just wanted to take a quick second to conclude and to especially say thank you, Alaina, for your presentation tonight, and thanks to all of you for participating, and to let you know that later this week you will receive an invitation to participate in an online survey about tonight's webcast, and if you could take a few minutes to give us your feedback, we would really appreciate it. We take a break from our free monthly webcasts during the summer, but they will return in September, and we will have those dates and topics available on our website soon, so be sure to check back for our fall lineup. And you can use the summer to catch up on any of our webcasts that you may have missed by watching the recordings. And our webcast tonight was recorded and will be uploaded to our website by the end of the week, and that is myhorseuniversity.com. We will have one webcast this summer on July 20th at noon, and that is part of our equine genetics series with the University of Minnesota. And more information on that will be available on our website soon as well. And you can also follow us on Facebook or on Twitter for information about upcoming events and special promotions. And if you have any comments and suggestions, you can send those to info@myhorseuniversity.com. And thanks again, and have a great night.
All right. And Amanda, is this, if it's still recording, I'm not sure. I don't have anywhere I have to be right this second. So if it's possible, like, I definitely would love to hang out and answer questions if people still have them.
Sure, that sounds great.
I don't know how you guys normally work that.
As much time as you want to offer, then
Okay.
If we still have questions, that's just perfectly fine.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah. So I'll hang out for a few minutes if you guys have questions. I would definitely love to be able to answer them, because I know that was a lot of information all at one time. So if you don't have questions, I would be a little concerned. Okay, Lynn says, I rescued a spotted gaited mare from the kill pen at an auction. I have no idea what she is. She has been in QT, so not under saddle yet. What clues will help me determine what she is? Lynn, well, that's an awesome question. So she could be anything, especially since she's spotted. But what I would do is when you get her started, I would make sure that, she's being started in a balanced and collected manner and slowly kind of ease her into it. There are clues, like individuals who've been around a certain breed of gaited horse for a long time are able to pick up different traits of that breed. So, for me, it's very easy most of the time for me to look at a horse and be like, oh, that's a walking horse, or, oh, that's probably a foxtrotter. So if you have a friend who, near you who is like versed in the gaited breeds and could look at this horse for you, that could definitely be helpful. But when you start them out, just let them do whatever gait they're doing, but just work them slow, collected, and see kind of what they fall into. So it's kind of a all up in the air deal for you. And honestly, it doesn't really matter what gait that mare ends up doing, as long as she's collected and balanced, then she'll be a comfort to ride. So that's at least a relief. That's the fun with the spotted horses. You get prizes in packages. All right, one of my Tensi walking horses refuses to gait but will trot instead. Any suggestions as to help that? Okay, so this walking horse that you have, has it been under saddle for quite a while? Or is it a young horse that you're trying to start? No, wait, we'll kind of go into that while we're doing here. So yes, older and was trained Western. All right, generally with the older horses, it depends on their starting. So the fact that they're trotting is, the trot takes an entirely different group of muscles than it does to walk. So we'll go back to my gym example again. If I want to get stronger at bench pressing, I'm not going to go to the gym and train to put all of my strength in my legs. Okay, that doesn't really make sense. The trot and the flat walk utilize very different muscle groups from the horse's hindquarters. So certain muscle groups are going to be more well developed in the flat walk, and some are going to be more well developed in the trot. So in older horses, this now proposes an issue where it's going to be difficult to retrain those muscle groups on that horse, especially if they've been trotting for a long time. Great at a faster gait and canter, but at the slow gait just trots. Okay, well, what he's probably doing at the slow gait just trotting is honestly probably just not wanting to work correctly. So if he is, as soon as you speed the horse up, they're happy to go into their gait, it's hard for a horse to go slow. All right, horses were born and bred to go fast. All right, even the lazy ones, despite what they may tell you. When horses go slow, it's harder for them to collect. So what's probably happening is when this horse slows down, he's just going, ugh, this is hard. It's so much easier to trot. And then he'll just lose his impulsion from his hind end and trot. So, you know, differing, it could be a number of things with the hindquarters, but working on transitions. So maybe trying going very slowly from your faster gait down to your flat walk might help. It just depends. And a lot of these questions too, with training questions, you guys, like I can give general ideas, but it's really hard without seeing a horse in person and without working with a rider in person. And if you want, if you feel comfortable, you can privately on your chat message send me, you know, information. If you're like, I know this is where I am. Do you know any trainers in the area? You know, because I do brokerage, and so I have a network of people that I work with all around the U.S. So I may be able to help you. Our next question that we have was from Deb Hand. Mile-long private dirt road to ride on, nice 3-mile-long grassy area, best exercises you could do with your Rocky Mountain horse. Okay, this is awesome. I love having long stretches to ride because this is just so much more refreshing for the horse's brain and for yours, all right? Going in circles gets boring after a while. The dirt lane can be good to work on transition work. If you're wanting to work on balance and collection, the long grassy area is probably going to be a little bit better for that because it's going to offer some resistance that's going to make your horse want to work a little bit harder than a flat grassy road. Doing some things, you could do lots of transition work and serpentines. Serpentines meaning lots of half circles, you know, changing each direction, kind of weaving your way up the road. Now, the correct way to do this to strengthen your horse would be to literally do half circles. A lot of times when we do serpentines, we kind of flatten them out and weave and don't really make the horse bend. But working on really making your horse bend will really help kind of push that horse around. But lots of things with transitions and with working on just making sure they're balanced and supple will help you kind of get more into, you know, in tune with the breed. And then also if you're, you know, completely stumped about something, definitely try and find a friend who could do that. And I just saw a new question back about the older walking horse we were just talking about. Is it okay to keep him in the trot or should you keep asking him? Honestly, that's your call. If your goal is to show the horse competitively, then you'll need to fix the trotting issue. But if you're trail riding, if it's a comfortable trot and you're happy with it, let him go. You know, it's going to be, I'll go ahead and tell you, it's going to be work to retrain those muscles. If that's a task that you're, you know, that you really want to do and are committed to, go ahead and do it, you know. But if you're pleased with the way the horse is now and your only purpose is pleasure riding, then do whatever's more fun and comfortable for you. All right. So now we're on Anne's question. Thank you guys for being patient with me. Webcasts are way different than dealing with a person one-on-one. A friend's Tennessee walking horse, 3.5-year-old mare, stumbles quite a bit. Think sideways in small circles to help paying attention, be more careful with her feet since she's not started. For Anne, yes, you definitely could do that. The stumbling could be related to an improper shoeing issue, potentially. I don't know this individual. Sometimes people get walking horses and think that they have to grow their front toes out long to force them to gait. This is not necessarily true. So I would definitely check and see, you know, if her toe is too long for her, then she will be stumbling. But yeah, working on balance and collection. Horses who stumble are generally very heavy on the forehand, barefoot and Mustang roll. Okay, good. Yeah, then she's probably just lazy and heavy on the forehand. So horses who really stumble and are heavy on the forehand, you know, things like circles and collecting and extending and transitions, all those things are going to help get her on her hindquarters. So yeah, you're definitely on the right track. And for those of you who are sending me private messages, I will get to them as soon as I finish with everyone. So I'm not ignoring you. Oh, on the ground online. Okay, see, this is good. I'm not reading everyone's. So yeah, and on the ground and online, yeah, you can definitely do that. It's going to be something where it's going to be something you can fix much easier under saddle than necessarily on the ground. But that's definitely a good start for sure, just to get her paying attention. All right, scrolling down. All right, so Sharon says, in the future, I'd like to buy a baby fox trotter for versatility events. What should I look for when purchasing a baby? All right, what you want to look for is, the first thing is balance in terms of their conformation, just like any other horse. You want a horse who's balanced. The neck and the shoulder on any horse is extremely important, but especially a gaited horse, because the neck and the shoulder, the neck is what controls your balance, and the shoulder is where it's going to set the tone for everything else in the body. You want a very long shoulder, a neck that is long and rises high out of their shoulder, and you want to look for a baby who's naturally very loose, right? Babies are so long-legged, if they're not loose and swingy as a baby, they're not going to be able to gait with quality and with power. And especially if you want to do versatility type events, purchasing a baby, you're going to want to look for something balanced and something that's pretty structurally correct in terms of their legs. And if that's, you know, an area you feel comfortable in, you know, evaluating yourself, go for it. But if that's an area where you're not comfortable in your ability to evaluate a horse's conformation, I would definitely take someone who is with you so they can be honest. Okay, and I think if I missed your question, I'm sorry. You may want to type it again for me at the bottom. But I think that that is it. And also, on a note for versatility, these guys are awesome versatility horses. All right, all of them. You know, they can do anything that a regular horse can do with the proper training, and they can go far. You know. Okay, good deal. Well, what I'll probably do is I will probably turn my microphone off here since I don't see any other questions, and I will hang out on the chat for a few minutes just in case something else pops up. But thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity. So y'all have a good evening.